everybody. This is the Collective Objective. I lost my power for a second. So that's why I don't have a camera. But good evening, everybody. It'll pop back on in a minute. This is the Collective Objective. I am Justin, and with me tonight are AJ and Matthew Sampson. Tonight we're going to talk about social anxiety and anxiety in general, and how do you kind of deal with that, and how do you overcome it. It can be a crippling mental illness. If you've ever dealt with it, it's one of the mental illnesses that you actually it can physically affect you. So I felt like, so for those who don't know, Naomi Osaka had recently dropped out of the French Open, and her when she was asked why, her explanation was that she has depression and anxiety that she's been dealing with her whole life, and she was overwhelmed by it. And so Don Taylor actually suggested that we have a discussion about it. So I was like, you know what, that's a great idea. So with that, I'm Justin. I am a Georgia resident, originally from Tampa, and I'm excited to talk about this tonight. And I'll just go clockwise. So AJ, you go, and then Matt, you go.
Hi, so I'm AJ. I was born in Texas, raised in Florida. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this topic, having struggled with this throughout my life as well. So very excited.
My name is Matthew. I was actually born in South Korea. I was adopted at 18 months old. So basically, I'm Americanized, and I've had a lot of struggles when I was young, and a lot of it was probably coming from like being the shortest person around. Like, kids were pretty mean about that growing up. So I've had to deal with a lot of issues growing up, and I think I shared some of it with you guys. Well, with you, Justin, at least. So I'm excited to kind of talk about this too.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to just pull up the definition really quick on what, first I'll do what social anxiety is. So what is social anxiety disorder? Just so I'm not speaking out of context or anything, then I'll say like what it means to me. So social anxiety disorder is a chronic mental health condition in which social interactions cause irrational anxiety. For people with social anxiety disorder, everyday social interactions cause irrational anxiety, fear, self-consciousness, and embarrassment. Symptoms may include excessive fear of situations in which one may be judged, worry about embarrassment or humiliation, or concern about offending someone. And then it talks about some of the treatments and therapies that have worked, which we'll talk about tonight. So I know that for a lot of people, public speaking brings about anxiety, and it's a big fear for a lot of people. And I think that's a normal fear for most people to have. But for those that don't have social anxiety disorder, that kind of that feeling you get when you have to do public speaking, they feel like that about every social situation. It's an overwhelming experience. Oh yeah, and really quick, if I forgot to mention this when we first opened, if you noticed the color scheme, we changed it up to celebrate Pride Month this month. We will be doing a Pride panel.
No.
Can you still hear me?
We lost him.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
I think I'm like kicking something, or I don't know. There we go. Okay. So yeah, we're going to be doing a Pride panel, I believe the last Friday of the month, in celebration of Pride Month. So that'd be the Friday, the 25th. And we're going to try to get some LGBTIQA plus people on here. We're reaching out, and we're going to see what we can do. But we're also going to have some allies on here too. So back to the social anxiety. For people with social anxiety disorder, that fear that you have when you're doing the public speaking, they kind of feel that all the time. It's actually something that I have a lot, and the way that I've kind of dealt with it is through cognitive behavioral therapy. I haven't tried any meds or anything like that. I just did the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically like a rewiring, a retraining of the brain. What we can get more into that in a little bit, but I'll let you guys talk about what social anxiety disorder is to you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. It has a lot to do with I mean, that's a perfect example. The idea that anyone who doesn't like it, the fear of public speaking and then amplify that on an everyday basis with every interaction. I have ADHD, and it took me a long time to figure out why I was so anxious around people. It's because I don't always get social cues and, you know, how I'm supposed to react to things. I'm very literal. I have a lot of trouble with sugarcoating and beating around the bush type of stuff. And a lot of it's all surrounded in what is expected by society. I mean, whatever age you are, if you're in high school, the trends going on and like who does what in high school and how you should be acting. And if you're an adult, you're at work and you're in the workplace and how you should be acting in the workplace. So, you know, whatever it may be, even in a family dynamic, how you're supposed to be acting. And for me, I did traditional therapy for a while, and you know, it's definitely helpful. I know a lot of people struggle with traditional therapy, given that, you know, that's a whole other conversation. The issues surrounding people being treated like numbers in any type of health scenario. But what ended up really helping me is hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And so I'm now certified as a hypnotist and a hypnotherapist, and it's insane the immense change that happens so fast when people access the resource-rich knowledge and healing that's within themselves, within their own minds. And same thing with cognitive behavioral therapy. Same idea that you're rewiring, you know, how you perceive something and how you are handling it. You can release emotions, release trauma. And we always say that should is in the dictionary between shit and syphilis, and it should stay there. So a lot of things that, you know, you find yourself saying, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. It usually has to do with someone else wanting that and requesting you to do that, or making you feel like you have to do something instead of you having the personal drive to do it yourself. And so I try to be really conscious of how much I should be doing things, or should be acting a certain way. And that also is very helpful for me to kind of step back and be like, why am I so worried about what everyone else thinks? Why, you know, who's in charge of this? And, you know, I'm in charge of how I feel, and start adjusting based off that.
I basically had like a lot of my growing up kind of formed by my family, and like even down to like seeking approval of my family, of whoever I dated. And I just didn't really realize that it was comfortable for me, but I didn't really have a lot of self-confidence in myself. So I have always let other people kind of dictate who I was, until one point where I kind of had a moment where I kind of rejected a lot of issues that I had with my family. So that kind of blew up, and but it gave me a chance to discover myself, but I did it wrong. So kind of like I changed myself from like with a lot of self-talk, saying, because I have a lot of anxiety, and just like to get out there and talk and meet people was a huge barrier that I had to learn to overcome. But once I did, it was like everyone thinks like I have a type A personality, and they can't believe that I'm actually like an introvert. And but to do that, I had to just like in that moment talk myself in that moment and say, no, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, right until the moment you do it. So it's like I really just had to push myself in every moment, so I don't have that feeling of like, you know what, it's just better if nothing will happen if I don't say anything, kind of thing, you know. But unfortunately that's not how life goes forward. So I really just had to push myself in that moment. But eventually I had to go see a therapist, because it was affecting my relationships and everything, because what developed was all that repressed emotion. So really I would always compensate where I didn't feel confident in myself with lashing out and being super emotional. And talking with therapists about it helped me balance my logical mind with my emotional mind. So in a way, instead of just shutting down the emotion and just like being completely robotic and trying to be logical, it's actually more effective when you can actually bring in the emotion into whatever logical argument you're bringing. And it helps articulate what you're trying to say too.
So kind of walking through your emotions with logic.
Right. And then just like keeping that passion, but not letting it cloud your logic, your judgment, how you're interacting with people. Because especially when I, would be drinking and I get excited, and then you talk about politics, like I get like super, super excited, but then I shut everyone out. Like I'm the only one that can have an opinion. And then it's like, that's all, I take over the show, and that's not good for anything really. And I had to learn that too.
I find that interesting too, because I mean, it makes sense when you have anxiety and any fears surrounding social interaction. It's almost difficult to figure out when you feel that comfort, if you're acting correctly, or like what is a normal way to act. So I can relate to that, where you get into a social setting and you feel comfortable, and then at some point along the way you feel that judgment that you thought you had worked past. And it definitely, you have to be able to take accountability with yourself. And that's something that I feel like everyone has to do. And just step back and realize what role you play, how you're affecting people, what you're saying, and how you say it. Because I feel like how you communicate things is extremely important. But then also, on the other side of that coin, someone's always going to have something to say about everything, about anything you say. There's always going to be someone with a differing opinion. So where do you draw that line between, okay, I'm taking accountability for what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, and someone else just being in their position of judgment because they're just against whatever you had said? Like how do you find that place to not feel embarrassed or judged or weird about other people when they're going to do it regardless, if my question is making sense?
So I think, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was asking if you had something to say.
So in those situations, like the people that are judgmental, I feel like they don't matter. Just, at some point, I call them toxic people. And at some point, like the people, okay, so there's a difference between an opinion and somebody like saying something because they care about you and they want to see you be the best version of yourself, and they're just like calling you up on your awareness. And then the people that are judging you. And then I feel like the people that judge you, they're toxic. It's toxic energy, and you should just remove it from your life when possible. That's just like one way that I've dealt with it. Because in my past, the social anxiety, I would avoid situations that were social because it was crippling. And then like, say, you have like this event that's coming up, and about the event like 2 or 3 weeks out, and the anxiety starts as soon as you find out about it. Like, I got this event that I have to go to in 2 or 3 weeks, and then as it gets closer and closer, the anxiety gets worse and worse and worse. And then so what I had learned, I actually went to therapy as well, and that's where I did the cognitive behavioral therapy. My counselor is like, you got to take these thoughts, like, what are you thinking? And then it'd be like, okay, I'm scared of this. I'm scared of people judging me or making fun of me or whatever. And he's like, okay, well, when you do that, kind of like what you were saying, Matt, he's like, kind of logically work through it. Like, okay, so what if they're judging you? Even if they are, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's going to, in 2 days, they're not even going to remember about it. It's going to be gone. They're going to be moved on to the next thing. And then also, like, there's a lot of like negative self-talk that goes on. Like, and one thing that he told me to do with the negative self-talk, he's like, every time you have a negative thought about yourself, one negative thought, do 3 positive thoughts. Okay, so I'm overweight. I'll tell myself I'm overweight. People are gonna make fun of me because I'm overweight. Okay, well now you got to tell yourself three good things about yourself, and okay, well, and then I'm a pretty nice person, and like you just go like and you just kind of do that, and then I've noticed that helped me a lot, and then forcing myself into situations where I had to kind of deal with it helped. Let's see.
Yeah, that's there was another thing you said was the continuous like negativity that I feel like makes up most of my thinking. It's almost like just mental weight that wears me down, and but I've learned to better internalize it. I know sometimes people say like, well, you should try to get it out, externalize it, and I did that in therapy, but I kind of stopped therapy because like I think I got the tools in hand where I can now self-talk in my head and not let negative thoughts just bog me down. I talk through it and I can get to at least the neutral side to it instead of it just like being very toxic in my own head. Really, the toxicity for me came internally rather than externally.
I can relate to that, especially like ADHD in girls. I mean, people have the idea that all ADHD is the little boy in class that can't sit still. But for women and girls, it usually is that hyperactivity internally. So my mind is at 1,000,000 miles a second, 100% of the time. And a lot of the time it's negative. And I can also relate to when you had said there was a period of time that you didn't really fully realize you didn't have that much self-confidence, and because you let other people kind of shape what was happening. And I can absolutely relate to that as well, that I just kind of skimmed along just based off of a lot of other people's standards and what they had built me to be. And it felt comfortable enough, not like comfortable being my true self, but just comfortable enough that I could exist doing it. Until I hit this wall where I had realized I was not comfortable with it anymore. And I wasn't being my true self, and I was very uncomfortable in social settings. And I was uncomfortable with myself all the time, having that conversation in my head of, whatever the negative thoughts may be. You said that weird, people don't like you, whatever it may be. You're talking to people and you just have that internal dialogue that's like, why did you say that? Like, why are you here? And studying hypnosis and hypnotherapy, the more you learn about how quickly you respond to even how you think. Because, people will talk about speaking positively, putting positive affirmations out into the universe so that it'll come back to you. But taking that a step further, it's extremely important what you're thinking to yourself, because that affects your behavior every day in every single way. And your subconscious mind is looking to validate whatever you're feeding it. So if you're telling yourself like, I'm ugly, whatever it may be, your subconscious mind is looking for ways to validate that. And so pointing out every little thing to prove that is to be true. So like Justin was saying, for every negative thought, 3 positive thoughts, that works great for me too. That I to the point now that I'll stop myself mid negative thought and be like, delete. And I gotta like come in with a good positive thought and redirect my energy somewhere else.
Throw it away.
Exactly.
And people tend to be their own worst critics. And I think with people with anxiety, it's escalated even more. And just like, so somebody had told me once upon a time that depression is when you think about the past, and anxiety is when you think about the future. And I feel like those two things go hand in hand. If you're a overthinker, you kind of you suffer with both. You'll think about something that you said maybe 10 years ago, and you're like, rarely do we focus on the good things that we did 10 years ago. It's always like, why the fuck did I say or do this 10 years ago? Instead of being like, oh, I did this great thing 10 years ago. No, it's the why did I get drunk and do this stupid thing 10 years ago? So
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say we live in a society that encourages that, though. Like, the society we live in does not care if you've completed 99% of your goal. They want you to look at the 1% that you haven't completed. So thinking about how powerful your internal self is, and you only hold so much power when everything around you is fighting that as well, which I feel like is why more and more people are more interested in being away from the collective, like people in cities and all the social media and hecticness going on of the conspiracy theories. And people are like, I'll just live in a tiny home somewhere in the middle of nowhere and I'm good. Because it's overwhelming, the all of the shoulds.
I mean, I can even relate that to kind of politics, how like figures that have done so many amazing accomplishments in their past. Like most recently, we're talking about Fauci. He's done a lot of good things, but what matters is this moment, of like where he has to be perfect still to part of the population. And if not, they just try to destroy him. And no matter what he's done in his past, it doesn't matter to this point.
So breaking off on that, just to get into politics with you just for a second. So here's a guy that's dedicated his whole career. He's Ivy League educated, top epidemiologist in the country. He makes one mistake, and that's what people are focused on. They're not focused on the bulk of his career where, he got us through swine flu. He got us through the Ebola outbreak. He's had these outbreaks through his career where he was the top epidemiologist in the whole country, and people went to him and depended on his mind to get us through it. And now we're just going to focus on a few emails, and that's going to be the focus of his whole career. But I will say that those same people that are criticizing him don't seem to have a problem with Matt Gaetz. So,
yeah,
I mean, what's worse? What's worse?
Cancel culture, I feel like, it's important to hold people accountable, like I was saying, but cancel culture can be really, really toxic because it's the idea that nothing that you've ever done matters. What matters is the one mistake you made. And what type of world are we if we only go off of the mistakes that people make? Because I view mistakes as a chance to learn. Not to say that everyone should constantly be able to make ginormous mistakes with a bunch of lives at hand all the time and just be like, whatever. But we also can't just, completely cancel people and their existence.
As much as we want to.
Yeah.
With some things, I think that people, I think it's warranted, and then others I don't. Like if Harvey Weinstein, for example, like if you had a history of doing this repeatedly over your whole career, and then people come out against you, then yeah,
totally
get the fuck out of here. But you make one mistake, people make mistakes, and I mean, for heaven's sakes, like I don't want to be judged on things that I did 10 years ago. I think everybody deserves a second chance, but certain things with certain professions, I'll say, you should be held to a higher standard. I think the whole Fauci thing, though, is being blown way out of proportion. But especially because they didn't even know anything about the damn virus when it first came out. It was all guesswork.
And that's like why it was so important to have someone like Fauci who was not willing to stand on like one piece of advice and stick with it the whole time, where that's what Trump did. He listened to, the more we found out, the more the advice evolved. And to a lot of people, that looked like, well, he doesn't know what to do. He's just guessing. Well, he's trying to take the best information at hand and giving the best advice. And that's really just a good lesson for all of us in a way. But for me, like when I was telling you about how I learned with my therapist about balancing my logical and emotional mind, that does sound like a neat package of like advice. But even knowing that, it took failing time after time after time to really stop letting my emotion still take over, because that was my proclivity. And after like getting into heated arguments on Twitter and like just letting people just enrage me. I've learned from so much in the little successes I've had, because I actually find like it's kind of like an honor that I've turned like 3 people from Trumpers to Democrats. So I feel like it took a lot of effort, and just I'm always looking for that one moment of where you can relate, and then you branch off that. But it just takes so many failures to get to that mindset of just being patient and waiting for that moment. But
so Jan has a question for you. So she said, logical versus mushroom mind is interesting. Do you have any strategies that you actually use?
Yes, because you have to recognize the triggers. So for me, it was actually a physical trigger. When I was getting to that point where I knew like I was just going to go emotionally like crazy on someone, I felt it like right in my chest and like lower throat. I could feel that. And recognizing that, I was able to know, stop and just like reset yourself and come back.
I mean, I have a good answer for that too, and it goes more into the hypnosis subject. So your conscious mind is what's in the driver's seat most of the time. It's your logical mind that's analyzing, tall, short, far, close, hot, cold. It's, measuring everything and has no room for emotion whatsoever. So your conscious mind is there when you're learning something new, when you're functioning and you're doing something, you have to be thinking about it. But when your conscious mind isn't hanging out there anymore and it isn't necessary, so for example, tying a shoe, you don't have to think about tying a shoe until you teach a kid how to do it. And then you have to think about, okay, what am I doing to make this happen? So then your subconscious mind is hanging out in the driver's seat, which is your creative, receptive mind that, it's a lot more susceptible to suggestion. And when you're hearing things, your subconscious mind is what's storing everything you hear, all the suggestions you hear throughout the day, through the conversations you have, the music you listen to, the TV you're watching, whatever it may be in the background. And you're constantly hearing all of these suggestions, and you either agree with them consciously by saying, yes, I agree, or you fail to disagree with them. And then your subconscious mind and your behavior is looking to validate all of those suggestions. So you have to go back and forth between what's logical, your thinking mind that's analytical, again, it's measuring, and then your creative mind, which is more about kinesthetic. It's what you feel, it's what you hear, it's what you taste, what you smell. And so if you can find a balance between, like he said, the physical, what's happening, your body knows, and you can sit there with yourself and tell yourself a lie and tell yourself a truth and feel it somewhere different in your body. And I do this with people a lot. You close your eyes and you say, I am AJ. And for me, that's true. And where do I feel that in my body? And then I'll say, close my eyes and say, I am Justin. And I know that's not true. Where do I feel that in my body? And as things are happening and you're unsure, or you like a moment, like he said, where you know that something is going to go wrong because your body will tell you, it's a great way for you to kind of like reset yourself and notice, I'm worked up right now, or my body is telling me no. Why is it telling me no? I can step back. It's kind of the idea of perspective, that everything is around you. It's just what you decide to look at. And so if you're connecting the two, the subconscious and the conscious mind, you're creating changed behavior that benefits you and everyone around you.
Talking about this whole conscious versus subconscious mind, it makes me, probably not tonight, but they've done a lot of studies with police brutality and policing in America, and how people, how their brains react to being approached by police, and how I believe it's your frontal versus your parietal lobes. Like one's your primal brain and the other's your logical brain, and how each one kind of reacts differently to a situation. So when, and I'd like to get, maybe we got to network a little bit. Maybe we can get a psychologist to come on and talk about it. But So my understanding is that the frontal, I believe, is your logical brain, and your parietal is your primal brain. And so when police pull somebody over, if they have a gun drawn, instantly the logical brain is toast. The primal brain kicks in, and it's your fight or flight brain. So a lot of times they think that. So if the police are confronting somebody and they were to draw a gun on somebody, that fight or flight's kicking in. So automatically you're either gonna run or you're gonna fight back. Whereas if you take a community policing approach where you actually know the people that you're interacting with, and you have a conversation with them when something does come up, just that simple, just not pulling your gun out. The primal brain doesn't kick in, and you're able to have a logical conversation and de-escalate the situation a lot better. But we can talk about that another time. But I just kind of triggered something. Yeah, sorry.
That's super interesting. Definitely.
That's a whole panel in itself. Like we need to reevaluate policing in America and how things are done. But
absolutely. I mean, all of these things that we've gotten into are topics that can stem anxiety on a social level. That think work, getting pulled over, having to go to an event, just social construct in general, all things that stem. It's like the idea of someone else's standard that you're supposed to be following. And all of that brings up really heavy anxiety of what you are supposed to be. And I guess a good question would be like, how do we change that? How is that something that, how do you change an entire society and what the like mecca position is, what everybody sees as beauty standards, or, like whatever makes you popular or well-known or liked, like who's in charge of that? And if it's a collective altogether that kind of a bunch of people form their opinion in that way, and thus more people continue to follow to that, how do you change that and make it more love directed and less judgment and hate directed?
I think we need to come to a place in our society where we celebrate each other's differences rather than like have this Stepford Wives type society where everybody has to kind of like, has this this prototype that we're supposed to be. So let's, I think that's one of the things that makes America beautiful is we're a culture and a society of all different walks of life, all different races, religions, genders, and we need to celebrate those differences rather than have these expectations of people. Like, it starts with parenting, really. If you think about it, like as parents, like a lot of parents like have this idea of what they want their children to be, and it starts at a very young age. And like they'll say, well, I want them to go to college, and I want them to blah 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 blah, and instead of just letting our kids be kids. And you got to parent, obviously. It's a balancing act, but like not being so judgmental of their decisions and just making sure that they're making the right choices, and as long as they're not hurting themselves, being supportive of that.
I've actually heard a good perspective on parenting. You are actually the worst hypocrite in the world as a parent, because everything you've done, you're just making sure that you're not going to let your child do that. And it's
truth.
It is just a situation of hypocrisy.
I saw something earlier today. It was like a video on social media that a mother had made where she was letting her kid do something in Target, and another parent is like, you're just letting your child do that. And she started laughing, and the other person started getting more and more aggravated. And she was like, what do you mean let them? Like, this is a human being that has feelings and an agenda of their own and a future to shape. I don't let them do anything. I'm here to help them grow, and so I have to be responsible as a parent and do what I can as a parent, but ultimately I'm not letting my child feel. Like, I'm not going to tell my child what they can and can't feel, or what they can and can't, essentially do with their lives. And yes, there has to be boundaries as a child grows up. But like you said, parents from a very young age have the idea, I feel like it's always out of love. It's a beautiful thing that parents don't want their child to make the same mistakes that they made. But then there's sometimes too much of a grasp on, like, no, you won't do this. And then it's like this block from allowing their child to have their own experiences and make some of their own mistakes to grow. So it starts at a really young age. And just as much as you're there trying to protect your kid, it's still the idea that I want my kid to be a certain way. They should be a certain way.
I like how you phrased it, should be out of love. But I think a lot of what happens when people get to too much of something, they lose the perspective of where it came from. So I think, like, if you always remind yourself that what you're doing is with love and not just out of love, you maintain the intention and the good practices of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And I actually agree with Jan here that I think parents are more controlling now. I think it's easier to hide the controlling behavior, but I feel like parents are more controlling now. And a lot of that's because of societal pressures. And so, social media, everybody's connected now all the time. Like, you don't ever get a break from it.
Right.
It's 24/7 now.
I can't necessarily disagree entirely, because I'm 20 years old, so I don't know what parenting was like. But I will say that I have seen a huge amount of people now having children talking about their different parenting ways and allowing their children to have their feelings and working through things with their kids in a very different way than what I remember childhood being like and what I had seen a lot of people my age grow up with. So I think, yes, there's definitely some that are more strict, but I see things turning in a good way.
I feel like where the catch-22 is with this is, I feel like a lot of parents feel like, well, it's not that bad because I don't spank my kids or I don't use corporal punishment. But sometimes psychological punishment can be worse than physical punishment, and can be. I mean, both are bad. Don't get me wrong, both are bad. But some. So I feel like sometimes parents will be like, well, it's not that bad. My parents used to, beat me with a yardstick if I did something bad. Well, depending on like how are you punishing your kids? Is it like is it a reasonable punishment psychologically or not? And yes, definitely society is, I think, 10 times more judgy now.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. They have like entire movements and books like Tiger Mom.
Oh gosh.
I mean, I like, even when I tutor kids, as in my second job, I tutor math. It's like when I went, like, there's this one Indian family that I was tutoring their kid, and he scored a 1,400 out of 1,600, and that wasn't good enough for them. So literally, this kid knew these tests like better than I did, and the parents were like, yeah, we need another 100 points on this. And like, literally, we're trying to just sit there and test him and just test him. That's what the sessions became. And I just told him, this isn't how I tutor. I work through problems, trying to find the weaknesses, and it's a more interactive experience. So I was like, you can find any way to just test first. And so I've experienced definitely the tiger parent type mentality.
So Jan said controlling and strict aren't the same thing. My point was parents, and I think that kind of goes on to what you were saying, Matt, is that the expectations that we put on our kids, you see it in academics and sports and across the board, different things. and then the point that kids are very scheduled. So before I had moved to Georgia and I was becoming one of those parents, I had my son in hockey, and I expected him to, get certain grades in school, and he had hockey 4 days a week, and he wasn't being really a kid anymore. He had like an adult schedule almost. Like he would go to school, and then he would go to hockey practice, and then on certain days he would have games, and then at first I was kind of upset about it when we moved here because he got out of the hockey, but now I'm seeing like he's happier here, not having all those, like he's expected to like, my thing with him now is I'm not so strict with school. It's just, as long as you're trying your best, like actually trying, and you're not being lazy, I'm not going to get mad at you if you get like a B or a C, as long as like the effort is there. But I know that, and I've told him this, I know that if you're truly applying yourself, there's no reason why you should get below at least a B ever. Like if you, because I know my kid, I know he's smart. So, and I don't know if that's like bad parenting or not, but.
I mean, it's not necessarily an unreasonable standard, but it is still a level of strictness, but not to any ridiculous standard, I don't think.
Go ahead, Alex.
I think that's a really good way to encourage your children with I want you to try your best in scenarios, because starting with them at a young age and helping them to know that there's going to be things that don't come super easy to them, and maybe your very best isn't always going to be an A+. I personally think the idea of rating yourself based on letters is really traumatic for some people and very toxic, and creates that pyramid of power from a very young age. But it is, when you're telling someone, do your best, don't be lazy, put your best effort forward, that sets them up in a really great way for life, which is, you should, if it's something you're passionate about, put your best foot forward. But then there's also portions of life that you're not going to be so passionate about that are part of life, and you have to do it. Put your best foot forward, and sometimes things won't be perfect, and sometimes things will. And as long as you're putting in effort and being genuine about it, good shit. You're doing good.
I think you both are hovering over the important point is also, as much as we want to encourage them to succeed, we also must make it okay to fail. And
yes.
that's the pressure, like tying into Jan's question about how parenting affects social anxiety. That's part of that. That's, if you're afraid to fail, that adds on and tacks on to that anxiety. And I
can't fail. I can't. I gotta study for 50 hours for this test because my parents will kill me if I fail.
Exactly.
This quote changed my life. It says, everyone thinks that the failing is falling down, but it's really the staying there. And that totally changed my entire perspective. When I first read that, I was like, so you're saying that falling down is okay, staying there is what's considered failing. That makes sense. And it's the idea of, you got to have the bad to have the good. Because I mean, what really is good if you've never experienced the bad? So 100% I agree that failure is so important. Mistakes are a chance to learn.
Yeah, that's very important.
Another thing too that, and it's kind of off topic again, but another thing that I don't like that we're doing as a society is we're forcing so many students into STEM because that's where the jobs are. And we're not really, I feel like there's different types of people. Like some people are just artistic. They have a gift with art, but we're going to push, like as a society, we're pushing kids away from that. And I feel like that's a bad place to go. I feel like we need STEM people, but we also need art people. Like we need both. And yeah, maybe the career paths aren't as successful in the arts that they are as in the science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But I forget the saying. There's like we need the arts are how we feel, and I forget how the saying goes. It's something like the arts are how we feel and the STEM is how we build, or something like that. Like it's a yin and yang. We need both. And I know it's off topic again, but it's kind of on topic a little bit. With the whole parenting thing, like I feel like a lot of parents, like if their kid has like an artistic gift, they want their kid to be a doctor or something, they're going to push them away from that gift instead of encouraging it. And I feel like that could lead to anxiety. Like your passion, I feel like passion in life is so important, and being passionate about whatever it is you're doing is it's crucial.
So to take us off topic even more on that, that actually, so the push for STEM is more because those are the things that have been structured to be most successful in our society, where we really need to make success in other careers the real goal, because that will then branch us into the ability to change, to experience. So if we go into engineering and we hate it, because I might be good at it, but is that where it's really adding fulfillment in my life? You know, you're filling your heart container of anything. You probably aren't. You're feeling really empty. So that's going to translate to how you interact with all your other relationships, create more anxiety, probably even mental health issues, you know, like going postal. It's probably because that person really wasn't meant for that job, but that was financially available for them to reasonably do. We need to make teaching more financially successful. We need to make a whole lot of other careers financially successful, and it'll just allow us to find what makes us happy and what we're meant to be to fulfill our lives.
You bring up a good point, and it's how should we measure success? Should it be by the dollars in our bank account or by how we feel as a person? So if like you were saying, like say you're really good at engineering, but you really want to be a musician or an artist or photographer, well, you're sitting here, you know, your 9-to-5 job and you're dreading every moment of it. And yeah, you got a lot of money in your bank account, but does that money even mean anything if you're not enjoying your life? Like if you'd be happier, you know, if you'd be happier not having those dollars in your bank account, but you're painting every day, and that's it's filling your heart jar, like you said. If that's what's filling your heart jar, then filling our heart jar should be more important than filling our bank jar. That's
I think all of this is super relevant and on topic, actually, and I can relate to it all, especially that the fact that, I mean, I knew from a very young age I was interested in music, and man, society is not about that life. Society, every single person you encounter, especially being a young woman, will tell you, you know, you got to do a certain thing to do that. You know, like you got to sell your soul. You got to dress skimpy. You got to act a certain way. You got to I don't know if you're cut out to do that. That doesn't make as much money. Like everyone has something to say. And so, like you're saying, what is the real measure of success? And this goes off of, and it gave me anxiety for a long time. What society is asking for and what society places as the most successful job, and everyone should strive for that, instead of realizing that there is extreme value in the artistic side of things. Think about architects, for example, making some insanely cool but also very functional buildings. Like how would you feel if all of your buildings were just rectangles? You know, like, no, I can't say it's 100% necessary, like physically, to have a cool looking building, but the way it stimulates our brains and causes our behavior to alter based off of what we're seeing in the environment that we're in, I find it to be extremely important. The chemicals that release in your brain based off of seeing art, based off of the environment that you're in, and how you react and you're able to sustain your effort and your attention and your memory and everything, and how the different senses can trigger different areas of your brain and different spurs of whatever, what's the word I'm looking for, motivation for you. So I think that there's so much value. Like you said, it's the yin to the yang. There's value in both sides. And society wants everything to be one way, which can stem a lot of anxiety in people who are creative and want to go towards art and want to go towards music and want to go towards all of the different routes that are creative, but are continuously told throughout their entire lives, you probably won't make it if you do that. And so I always would tell people, so what is your definition of success in music? Do I have to be Ariana Grande? Or what if being successful to me is singing on the weekends at some random bar and enjoying myself? Why can't that be success to me? You know, and society bases it off of a dollar amount in your bank account. Whereas I definitely think it should be what fills your heart jar. And that's, I feel like for everyone, whether going for a creative thing or not, stems anxiety, because it's, again, I should have a better job. I should be in a better position. I'm this age. I got to settle down and I got to do this and things will be better. But if your heart jar is empty, is it really better? Does that really help your anxiety at all if you're still in this, line of, I guess, compliance and never complying to what your heart jar wants, but to what everyone else does?
I feel like your age group, AJ, has the highest anxiety because you're at a crossroads in your life right now, and so you get all this pressure from your parents and your peers and your boss or your educators, and like it's like you're constantly facing. At this point in your life, you're constantly facing decisions, and you have to question, like, is this the right decision for me? And then like you start thinking like, well, how's this person going to feel about it? You know what I mean? So I remember, wasn't that long ago, maybe it was, but I just remember that was like a very anxious time for me. And I actually self-medicated a lot when I was at that age. I did a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs, but I grew from it. But I feel like what you're saying with the the societal pressures, I feel that's a big part of it. And like I remember, and I was an adult when I went to college, but I remember one of I can't even imagine like how kids in their 20s do this, but one of the things that was so hard about it was like, what major do I pick? What do I do? Like, and like you start like doing all this research and like you take a few classes and you're like, no, I can't do that one. It's got to be and it's just like it's a game you play. And like I was always envious of the people that like knew like going into college, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it, and then like they do it. I'm just like, how did you do that? Like, how did you know? Like I had a friend when I was younger, and he said like, this is what I'm going to do. And we recently reconnected on Facebook, and sure as shit, that's what he's doing today. I'm like, how the fuck did you manage to, like, at 12 years old, you said, this is what I'm going to do with my life, and you fucking did it. Like, it's crazy. But
I feel like that's also hard, though, because although there are a few exceptions of people who do that and are actually happy with it, everything that is technology and social media is the idea of portraying only the good portions. So you don't really know how many people are actually depressed and anxious because they only post the photo that they look best in, or the peak moment of their vacation, or the peak moment of their job, but are they really happy there? And so that's really difficult, because also society tells you if you go into something, generally you can't change your mind, which I think is a problem. And I think that also stems anxiety for people who are trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life, my age or not? I think it's important to take everything that you learn, and if it's not what you end up wanting to do, you can use that knowledge in some way, shape, or form towards the next direction. But people will tell you, well, no, you already spent however much time on this. You should keep going. You should keep going. But is it worth it if you're ultimately unhappy? It's the constant pressure of everyone around you telling you what you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Not to try to just do a 180, but also on my mind.
180, do it.
Yeah, I know. This is how my mind works. So
I'm the same way as Squirrel.
Me too.
The thing I wanted to link with mental health was how our gun laws are fashioned, because in so many ways our gun laws are really bad in how it handles mental health. And it's not in always the way we think, though, because like in Maryland, one of my friends was doing all this research and dissertations on mental health herself, and I found out that if you stay overnight in any mental health facility for whatever reason whatsoever, you're barred for life from buying a gun.
Really?
Yeah. Like there's so many reasons not really actually mental health related why you would have to stay overnight. I mean, and it just, you do that, you just lose your Second Amendment right. And that's not right. So, but of course, the other obvious is how we handle assessing mental health and how, we really don't properly recognize it, don't properly treat it, and just like even us interacting with each other, we don't recognize it enough amongst our friends. Where I had one friend that was stupidly sarcastic. He was like one of my great friends. We would joke around on the internet all the time, and then just one time he offed himself, and I didn't no idea how bad his PTSD was, and it was something he was just able to hide so well from his friends, from his family. It was actually kind of a shock for a lot of people, and just not being able to recognize it. But he was so sarcastic and so funny that I wouldn't have known it.
Sometimes the funniest people are the most like they're dealing with like the heaviest stuff, and that I think maybe that's their way of dealing with it, is just being funny.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, in some mental health scenarios, masking is a very normal thing based off the idea of not knowing or what is supposed to be happening or what's supposed to be acted out facial expressions wise, emotion wise, anything as far as social cues and how to interact. But it applies to everyone in some way, shape, or form. That like masking is the idea of, I have to put on a show because I'm not allowed to express what I'm really thinking and what I'm really feeling. And I mean, it's like, you ask how someone is and they're like, oh, I'm fine. No one really, you ask people that so nonchalantly in all interactions, like, hey, how are you? Like, oh, I'm good. How are you? Like, no one really responds how they're doing, because it's the idea like, oh, they don't want to hear how much I hate life right now. They don't want to hear that I want to kill myself. And so people will keep it to themselves. And that is a huge problem that society has created of, nah, those emotions aren't valid. Like, no one needs to hear them.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah.
Also, conversely, if we did actually say how we felt, then we overreact to that too. It's like, oh, I'm feeling terrible. Then we're like either trying to do everything we can to like make sure they're not feeling bad, like they shouldn't feel bad, and we're treating that the wrong way too. It's like, yeah, we don't let them feel bad just to feel bad. We have to fix it.
Yeah, and it's also, I think people on top of that won't share because they don't want pity either.
Right.
It's fair, definitely. And that is frustrating because I think it's good to acknowledge feelings and feel the feelings and let them pass. Again, like it's the falling that's okay. Staying there is what's failing. But then when people pressure you with this like pity of like, oh man, like I'm so sorry, like I feel horrible for you, or they feel like they have to fix it, it does make you want to hold it in more. Yes. It's like, because I guess no one really knows how to act, which I guess as someone with social anxiety, that's a good thing to tell yourself too, that when you're sitting there like, I don't know how to act right now, I just try to tell myself, no one knows how to act. Who made the rules? Where is the manual? Because I did not get it.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
I think too that like we need to, like, if you ask somebody how they're doing, like actually like there's almost like this expectation that like when you ask somebody how they're doing, they're just gonna say like, I'm doing good, I'm doing all right, I'm doing well, whatever. And like if somebody, like we need to be okay with somebody saying, hey, I'm not doing okay today. And then like being a friend and just being like, what's going on? You want to talk? And to Matt's point, just like not necessarily trying to fix it, but just listen.
Yeah.
Like just be like, hey, just be a good friend and be like, I've been there, and or if you haven't been there, I'm sorry you're going through that. Like, how can I help? Like maybe the person doesn't want to hear a solution, like you were saying, Alex. Maybe they just want to vent. Maybe they just want somebody to listen. Like, hey, this is what's going on, and sometimes it just feels good to talk about it. And one thing that, like, when I don't necessarily like to talk about my problems too much, but like one thing that I found that helps me a lot is just going out and getting out in the wilderness, going for a hike, going out fishing, doing something. And I'll just go by myself, or I'll take my dog with me, and I'll go. And then when I come out of it, I'm at peace. I don't know. It's weird. Just like leave my phone at home, cut off from all the technology, and just get out there. And, finding a good place to sit in the woods sometimes can do a lot. So
Definitely. Definitely. I feel like we all sit on our phones so much, whether it's for work or social media scrolling, or whatever, looking at the calendar, texting. And I absolutely agree. That has been a huge saving grace for me, is just disconnecting and reconnecting with nature. And that's a fantastic way to ease anxiety, in my opinion. Whether you're someone who likes water or likes to hike in the forest, there's something for everyone, and in a very beautiful, natural way.
I can actually say that I'm kind of opposite, but that's an issue with me. Like, you guys are normal.
Oh, wow.
In that regard.
But you're the only person that thinks so.
But if I disconnect, I feel anxious, because I always feel like if I'm not connected, talking, interacting continuously in my presence, I feel like people will forget me. But that's just in my head. And I understand that. It won't happen, but that's an anxiety that I have built in my head. I don't know how to fix that.
That's an extremely valid emotion and fear to be experiencing. And I think everyone experiences that in their own way, whether it's fear of death or fear of being forgotten, fear of like, will anyone be able to hear me? Am I close enough to people? Am I understood? And I can relate to that for sure. And jumping back to what Justin had said about just listening to someone, that was something I experienced with a therapist, that I would tell her something, I would just vent, and she would say, I think I just heard you say, and kind of reiterate it to me. And that was, I think, the first time anyone ever actually did that to me, like actually reiterated something to me and actually heard me. And it was like earth shattering. It was so unusual for me that I was like, no one has ever heard me like that. Who are you? Like, why are you listening to me? Because we all listen to speak. It's such a normal thing that it's like, yeah, I finished talking so I can say something. So
yes,
when someone has a fear, I don't have to give you a way to fix the fear, or to fix the problem, but just to hear you and say, like, man, I understand. Like, I get what you're saying, and not have to fight for a solution, because, like you said, I was saying, maybe they don't want a solution. So being heard is like one of the most powerful sources of healing, at least for me. And I think it's very healing for a lot of other people, or could be.
Absolutely agree.
It's I think that's like, if you could sum it up all in like one quick thing, I think a lot of people just want to be heard or seen, and that alone can validate them.
Absolutely.
it's funny because I had the same feeling with my therapist too that you had, AJ, and I think it's funny how the anxiety of actually going to a therapist is also built in because the way we see it on TV or something is so not it, especially when you have a good one. And it's not just sitting there and just letting you talk. It's that they interact, they will give you feedback, and they also will restate things so you can hear your own self being said to you. And that's a great point you brought up. It's never portrayed that way in TV, movies, or anything.
And they'll give you coping mechanisms too. Some really good, like functional and healthy coping mechanisms to change your behaviors, your relationship with yourself, with others. And then totally 180, that's a whole other conversation. Can we talk about how Hollywood ruins everything? Like there's so many that scare people out of like, oh, this is only like this. And then when you really experience, you're like, it's not anything like the movie said it was. But that's a whole other conversation. So.
It's facts.
It's like the stigma of therapy is around like whatever you say, and then they're like, and how does that make you feel?
Yeah,
right.
And like the most calm, like gaslighting voice ever.
Sitting and laying on a couch with your eyes closed.
It's got to be one of the big ones that has like the curve.
Right. Yeah.
So, I guess a good question would be overall, if you could get rid of your social anxiety, like it had never happened to you, do you think you'd be the same person you are today? Or do you feel that the anxiety that you've dealt with has shaped you in a way that you're proud of?
Do you want to go first, Justin?
Sure. So for me, I look at everything in my past as learning experiences. I used to struggle with it big time, like not forgiving myself for things that Don said the fainting sofa. So I used to struggle big time with like not forgiving myself about things that I did in my past. But then like eventually I got to the point where I was like, you know what, had it not been for these things happening in my past, like these personal life experiences, and that was like the whole depression anxiety thing. But I feel like, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I feel like I'm a pretty good person. I care about people and I feel like I'm a good dad. And I think those two things about myself, you know, if I'm doing those two things right, then that's really all that matters. So I guess in that sense, because a lot of the things in my past did stem back from having that social anxiety and doing this, it wasn't even just, it was anxiety in general and depression. Those were like my two big struggles coming up in the world as a kid. Like, had it not been for those two things and going through some of the events of my past, I don't feel like I would be the person I am today. And I'm at a point in my life where I feel pretty good about the person I am. I feel like, you know, I interact in a lot of groups on Facebook and I see some really shitty people. So,
Yeah.
So, and I feel like maybe if they had some depression anxiety, it would do them a lot of good. But maybe they have like the worst depression anxiety. They hate themselves so much that they have to be dicks. But I don't know. I do feel kind of bad for them until they just say some fucking awful shit, and I'm just like, you know, I don't know how to feel about it anymore. Like, part of me like wants to be like irate at them and like lash out, and the other part of me just is like, you know, let's just troll them and have fun.
I would
Sammy,
say.
hold on.
Oh,
Hi. I'm doing pretty good. Just long day at work, but good. You know.
Welcome. This is the first time. I think this is the first time you've come on.
Yeah, it's the first time I've managed to actually get on.
Well, thank you for coming on. How's Washington treating you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. To it's been a bit of an adjustment, the amount of sunlight. So I've been tired a lot, but it's good. It's a beautiful place. People tend to be pretty chill
That's good.
compared to Florida.
Oh, I bet. I don't feel like
Yeah.
that takes much.
Yeah. Not that literally you could just go to Georgia and people are already more chill.
Exactly.
I don't know about that. It's like
To an extent.
a little bit better than Florida.
Just this much, but
Yeah.
Tiny bit.
But still, a little.
it counts. Yeah.
So tonight we're talking about anxiety, social anxiety, what it is to us, how we've dealt with it. Jan's actually from Washington State too, and I think she just gave you a little tip.
Yes, I actually do take someone from here got me to start taking vitamin D supplements. It really helps.
Fun fact, vitamin D actually. So I had COVID, and I took vitamin D, zinc, and vitamin C, and those three things. I didn't need anything else. I got over it in like 3 days. So
Wow.
yeah,
They're really good immune boosters too.
Mm-hmm.
You get all that stuff pretty naturally in Florida, so I gotta make up for it. But yeah, no, I actually have like pretty severe social anxiety. I'm medicated for it. It can be a lot sometimes. My social anxiety is a lot more like performance and self like view related. And so a lot of what I do to like deal with it is when I'm like overwhelmed, I do a lot of stemming, which is a term used by neurodivergent people to talk about like putting the stuff out in the physical. And so I'll like snap my fingers, hit my side, not like hard, but like tap my side. Or play with things. When I get home, I do a lot of stemming and I'll like space out and I'll just be like, one of my roommates has autism. And so we kind of both do our little stemming things. And so it's nice to have like stuff around the house that's specifically made for like getting out the anxiety in a physical way, because you don't realize how much it manifests in a physical way. Also, therapy. Therapy is amazing. I recommend it to everyone who has access to it. And I advocate for everyone having access to it. I feel like after I've moved here, my anxiety has been really bad, and I haven't reflected on that directly because I've talked about like just like saying like, oh, I'm just really tired. Like, oh, work is a lot, like I'm super tired all the time and I am always like doing stuff and stuff like that. So I've like been doing things that are like very bad, like common things that I do to mask when I'm having a lot of anxiety. And obviously like I'm in a new place, so that's totally something that like is a stressor, right? Like change, even good change, is a stressor for most people. So like I've been very anxious, and I think this is the first time I'm saying that. Like I've been very anxious this whole time, and I've been like exerting that in other ways and being like, I don't know, I'm depressed and I don't know why, and I don't know why I'm sad. It's because I'm anxious. And so and so like it's been interesting like being in a new workplace, being in a new place, like even though it's a great change for me and it's what I've needed and I in a lot of ways feel relieved, I'm also like on edge as far as my anxiety goes. Even though I have all these really cool techniques to help me calm down.
I think that's important to mention, is that it's not like something that you just can heal and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very situational thing. And so I don't do therapy anymore, and therapy has been extremely helpful for me. But that doesn't mean that I don't experience phases of a lot of anxiety and waves of depression. And that's okay. That's all right. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the world and you have to go back to therapy all the time. So I think it's the idea again that everyone needs to be healed in some way instead of adaptable, which like we said, even good change is really hard. But it's important to be adaptable, and it's important to go with the flow and, go with the motion. And I think we fight that a lot. And like you said, I do the same thing, that I'll find other excuses. I'm tired. I'm just busy, whatever the excuses, and not actually acknowledge it. And it takes time to get there. And that goes back to taking accountability and, then starting to implement those changes for yourself that are really effective for you, and for you to manage your anxiety. I mean, it's different for everybody. I can relate with the stemming because, man, I crack my fingers, I'll just shake my ankle, I'll move my hair, and it's some people think it's very weird. I don't care. It's just it's how I function. I don't even notice it's happening most of the time. And if it's what works for me, then that's good for me. I'm not really worried about other people's opinion about it anymore, which is very intense for me as someone who's struggled with social anxiety, to have a moment of like, yeah, whatever, I don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
It's an epiphany.
Right.
Once you get to that point, I forget the saying, but sometimes you just got to be like, fuck it. I'm going to do me as long as I'm not hurting anybody. Fuck what everybody thinks. So Alex had asked, prior to you coming on, I don't know if you caught it. I already gave my spiel. What has your social anxiety or anxiety formed who you are as a person, and would you change it? And so we're just kind of going around the room, answering that.
Damn. That's a deep question. I mean, in a way, yeah. Like, but I also like, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, right? Like, which came first. And so, but I really I feel like a lot of my anxiety stems from like my childhood traumas. In the house, I didn't really feel like I was safe. So I put all of my energy into school as a kid. Like, I was like, I'm smart. School is something I'm good at. No one hurts me at school. So I'm going to be like the smartest person I know, and like value knowledge and like smartness over everything. And like that made me compare myself to my peers a lot, and want to impress my teachers a lot, and impress other people with my skill in school a lot. And that made me very performance driven in a way that is a lot of times not healthy. And so it's almost like I formed this social anxiety as a coping mechanism. And I used that as a coping mechanism with the world that I was living in, but then I overcompensated and it started to affect me in a negative way. And so I wouldn't give it back, because I think it's really strengthened who I am and given me a kind of perseverance that people would never understand. And even in like my weak moments where it really affects me really badly, I can't say that the cons outweigh the pros. Like, for me, so much good has come out of me learning how to deal with my social anxiety, because it's never going to go away. And so much has come from the perseverance I've learned from that, from the different things that I've learned with being able to do that and being able to relate with other people in non-competitive ways, and being able to learn more about loving myself as a result of that struggle has been really amazing and like life forming, and like again built up that level of perseverance within myself that now like no challenge is unconquerable. Like I don't know. It makes me more determined. Like I'm just very like, now that I'm like on this journey of like taking care of my mental health and not letting that anxiety rule over me, and instead I'm ruling over it, I feel like I wouldn't give it back because I've just really like, it's given me so many opportunities to better myself. And I feel that way about a lot of things in life. Like I feel like for me, throwing away my adversity is not like helpful because it's not, it doesn't, it like takes away part of who I am. It takes away part of like the spicy part of my life that is more Sammy forming. Hi, Destiny.
Alex and Sam, or Samson. How do you guys feel about your social anxiety, and how's it? Would you go back? Would you change it?
Well, dealing with a lot of the should-have, yeah, I have a lot of those. So I guess there's always things that I wish I should have done, but I don't let that eat me up anymore. But I think there's so much that I've learned and overcome that I feel like it's become a victory. So much so that losing that would have, like, I gained so much self-awareness throughout all of it. So I think that's too valuable to lose now. So I would say it shaped me in a more positive way overall.
Hey, Destiny. Happy birthday, Liliana. I don't know if she's watching with you, but
Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Liliana.
hope
I'm,
y'all are having fun.
okay, so I can relate a lot to Sammy in that I struggled to make a lot of friends as a kid, being neurodivergent. And so I overcompensated in excelling in school and trying to impress my elders and my teachers. And I got a lot of praise for it. And that was the only place I was getting praise because I didn't have friends. I got bullied a lot in elementary, middle, high school. I just had so many like scenario after scenario after scenario of just not fitting in and not feeling like there was anyone that would get along with me. I remember my freshman year of high school was my first year of public school, and I cried before I went because I was like, all the girls already have best friends already, and then there's no guy that wants to be my best friend. Like, they already have their best friends. Why am I here? You know, why am I showing up? I always felt like I didn't fit in. I was the one extra puzzle piece that didn't even belong to that puzzle and was just like casually thrown in that box and had to deal with it. Like, we don't know where the other puzzle that you go with is at, so you just get stuck in this one. And so I overcompensated and got that praise from teachers and adults. And that was great for a period of time until it was to my detriment. And I didn't like myself. And my favorite thing doing as a middle schooler was cleaning the house when I got home because it was good for my mom and it like helped my mom and I would get some praise for it. And that's not normal, first of all. And it just like, it definitely, it wasn't even something I was conscious of until getting, out of high school, I want to say, and like really looking back and reevaluating it and noticing and kind of realizing what took place. But I definitely feel that it shaped me in huge ways into who I am today. And I'm a really strong believer that everything happens for a reason. Most scenarios in my life that seemed catastrophic at the time, I can look back now and understand why they happened. And not necessarily that someone said, oh, it's going to happen for this reason, but I can look back and say, this event taught me this. And for that reason, it was important and it was meant to happen. And things that I don't understand right in this moment, I know I will eventually understand. So that kind of helps to ease some of my anxiety about like, why, why me? You know, why am I experiencing these feelings and this anxiety? So, I mean, there are moments and there's still things that I look back in my past and I feel like I would love to give it back so I could have had whatever a normal experience really is. But I've had some of the most amazing times of my life with people that I wouldn't have met if I was per se normal, and learned some of the most amazing lessons that I wouldn't have learned in that way, at least, if I hadn't been given this challenge. And kind of like Sammy said, I feel like there's really no obstacle that I face that I don't feel I can overcome, even if it's difficult, even if I struggle through it. I have like this. Even if the light at the tunnel is microscopic, I can see it. So I think I value it more than I'm like angry at it. So I think I'll be okay with keeping it and say that I'm proud of who it's made me.
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I just go check something on my son really quick. Just give me like 5 minutes, but
No problem.
I'll be.
So I guess this is the opportunity we can talk all about Justin.
Great, he's gone.
What was I gonna say? I really resonate with a lot of what y'all said. I think one thing I really struggle with, and I know not everyone who has social anxiety struggles with this, but like I am a very extroverted person. I'm very social. So like a lot of people don't recognize my social anxiety because they're just like, oh no, you're like Sammy, you're like the most social person I know. You're always hanging out with people. But like part of what I'm doing is like hanging out with people to like avoid my anxiety about being alone or avoid responsibilities that I have because I'm anxious about meeting expectations or like not being perfect enough or whatever. And so like one thing that in particular that I've struggled with my anxiety is just like people allowing it to be what it is, because in some way like I have a different experience than like an introverted person with social anxiety because I'm very extroverted. I like to like crack jokes and like have a good time and like be the center of attention. But I don't know, like at the same time, like I'm always worried about what people are thinking or about like what's gonna happen and like if I'm good enough. And people just don't like always get that. And I think we're fortunate that we live in a time where mental health is something people want to talk about, because that means that we can avoid those kinds of scenarios. But I know like when I was in college, like people just didn't like get that I felt I had social anxiety. And then like when I finally like started like seeing a psychiatrist and a therapist about it, like I just feel like I've gained like so much insight about that and like people take it serious now. But it's just that's always been like a weird part for me is like balancing that like image that everyone has of me of being like happy-go-lucky and then like what's going on inside my head.
Now, with you said that you're extroverted. So do you feel, I guess, any like, I guess, emotional weight when you have to go out and socialize, or is that like actually something that energizes you and like really fuels you going forward emotionally?
I think it depends on the scenario. Like I feel like for a lot of people like see extroversion in like one way, but it's I tend to be like I do get fueled by like going to a party and like hang out with a bunch of people and like having that moment of like fun and laughter and like getting everyone to laugh or something, or like playing a game with everybody. That kind of stuff like really like gets me going. I'm known to like crack jokes at my Starbucks and like tell people in the drive through like jokes, and a lot of people look at me as like this super like happy person, like extra happy, like go lucky, get to know everybody person. But I get fueled by that. But at the same time, like when things go bad or I feel like something's going bad, there's that like my social anxiety is all about like how people react to me and what people think of what I'm doing. So it's not necessarily like the fear of going into the situation, it's how are people going to react to me, that drives my anxiety. And it's very much about like whether or not I'll be accepted, and it's driven by like a fear of abandonment. So it's very specific. I guess like a lot of people with social anxiety have a very opposite experience of me, and that's how it's portrayed in the media, is being like that. So it's been an interesting struggle for me in that way.
Okay.
Way to call me out though, because I feel like you just like told my entire life story. I literally have the exact same. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
It seems like Justin and Samson seem to relate in their experience, whereas I relate very closely with your experience. That I've always called myself an introverted extrovert. That when I first start working a job, I'm very quiet, and people are like, "Oh, you don't talk much," and I'm always like, "Remember you said that," because I'm like really quiet until I feel comfortable, and then I'm very interested in talking and conversating and making jokes and laughing. So it's not as much being in social settings or having a social interaction that gives me anxiety. It's how I'm perceived, how people are reacting to it, if I'm accepted. And you just like blew my mind when you said it stems from a fear of abandonment, because yeah, rest in peace. It definitely does. And that's like, how do you resolve that? That's definitely something that internally it's stuff I got to fix within myself, and healing my own childhood traumas and my own lifetime traumas. And I think that's something, like you said, that it's portrayed in the media to be one way. I think with a lot of mental health, things are portrayed to be one way. And then you have girls who are getting diagnosed with bipolar when they have ADHD, or bipolar when they have borderline, or ADHD when they have autism, and all of the overlapping symptoms. And there's no one size fits all. The idea of a spectrum is something that still seems to not be entirely understood. And that's kind of scary. Like earlier Samson was talking about, even in conversating with one another, it's hard for us to truly grasp what people are dealing with, and for us to even recognize it on a regular, normal basis. So, it's something that I feel all of us need to educate ourselves on more, and studies need to be done more on a wider range of individuals, women, men of all ages. And so it's really validating though to see that there are people with different experience. It's not a one size fits all. And so that makes me feel less alone, that someone else has experienced being extroverted, but still having that social anxiety. People are like, you don't seem like you have a problem. It's the idea of like, oh, someone with fibromyalgia, like you look fine, like they're hurting, they got that chronic pain. And it's like that with every mental health. There's that pain there. You don't have to see it, So I think it's really validating, and relating with people is something that helps me with my anxiety for sure.
One thing too that it's a blessing and a curse with mental health is, yes, there's the spectrum, and a lot of time when you first go to like a psychiatrist, if you need medicine, they'll kind of experiment with your brain a little bit, and they'll say, hey, try this medicine. okay, that one's not working. And it's almost like they're, because of the spectrum, they're trying to figure out, okay, well, what exactly, because there's these different symptoms with, and they kind of overlap with different mental illnesses. They'll be like, oh, well, I think you might have depression. We're going to try this. Okay, if you're not feeling better off that, okay, well, maybe you have ADHD. We're going to try this. Okay, well, if that's not working, all right, let's try this. And in some ways, I mean, don't get me wrong, if medication can help a lot of people, but it also, like, when you're kind of playing with your brain chemistry like that, I feel like it can hurt you a little bit.
And it's not for everyone, definitely. I know some people that it's just not the route they want to take, and that's okay. And I feel like there does have to be a balance. Like, you do have to be open to that. The idea of, this is a trial and error type of thing. And it was like that for me. I had gone on several antidepressants and anxiety medications and got worse, had no good response from it. And that's how I eventually got diagnosed with ADHD. But then you'll encounter individuals who get put on medications and they're trying to say this isn't working for me, and they get placed in with those medications, and that's it. Which is, I think, more of a problem than the trial and error. But then I also will advocate for stuff like hypnosis and hypnotherapy that is, no side effects other than maybe some tiredness or a headache, possibly, to experience extreme behavioral change that benefits you drastically. And I think they're all alternative modalities. So
I was on Cymbalta for a long time for depression, anxiety, and somebody told me about, I think it's pronounced Dopa mucana. It's a root. It's all natural. It's kind of like St. John's wort. I started taking that. I'm not on Cymbalta anymore.
Wow.
And I feel fine. I don't feel like I'll have down days or whatever, but for the most part, I feel like it's helped. I feel like it's more effective than the Cymbalta.
I think, for everyone's brain chemistry is a little bit different. And so that's important to keep in mind. I've always been really an advocate of as a pagan, I've always been a really big advocate of holistic medicine. So I take propranolol for panic attacks, and I take oh my god, what's it called? Why is my brain not working? Escitalopram for my anxiety and depression, because it's the way that medicine works, it works for both, and so which helps me lessen the likelihood that my depression will hit hard if it comes back, because I have really long depressive episodes that pop up. And so that really helps me, but I also do things that help me holistically, dealing with herbal healing and making incenses to do aromatherapy and using oils. But I always do that in combination with the advice of my medical professionals, because I know that I am not a doctor, so I don't know how effective these things are going to be in comparison with the medicine that a doctor would prescribe me. But that's always kind of how my approach has been, and different things work for different people. I actually have some friends who take holistic medicines or herbal medicines for their mental health needs. And if you find a holistic doctor who specializes in that, you can really find good results for that, because they are medically trained to actually scientifically back up what they're saying.
It sucks that there's not a way that they could do a blood test or something and be like, this is what's going on here. We can give you this medicine and it's definitely going to balance you out and fix you, but it's not how it works. We're not there yet.
There's some things they do that with, but they can't do that with brain chemistry yet, unfortunately.
Someday, I bet you someday they'll have some sort of something they can do where a brain scan or blood work or whatever, but yeah, they're not there yet. Someday.
I think they first have to understand how these medicines work in different types of brains, and I think that's just really like we're not there yet. The brain, we've probably discovered just about as much of the brain as we have the ocean. So we think we know a lot, but we just don't.
I remember when I was younger, people would say, "Oh, if we could unlock our brains, like our full brain potential, we could do all this stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, I can't wait."
I always find that so interesting, like this theory that we don't like because we don't use 100% of our brains all the time, that we're not like some kind of like magical surreal being. Because like if you used 100% of your brain all of the time, I'm pretty sure you would fly it. Like I don't think that's how brains work.
Have you ever seen?
Go ahead.
Have you ever seen a brain scan? Not to talk like a brain scan on hallucinogens. Like,
Oh yeah,
it's crazy. Like, it like lights up. Like they show like your brain normal, and there's like some bright spots on the. I think it's an MRI or CAT scanner. I don't know what it is, but one of the scans. And like, so there's like these bright spots on like a normal brain, and then somebody on hallucinogens, the whole thing's lit up. Like your whole brain is working, and I'm just like, is do the hallucinogens, is this how like our brains, is this how we would really perceive reality if we used 100% of our brains 100% of the time? Like, would we be tripping balls all the time?
Or would it just be a normal state? If that really was like the normal, then like, can you imagine that being the normal state and you experiencing our reality right now, and you're like, this is all they experience? You know, like, oh my God.
This is boring.
With the subconscious mind, the idea is that it's like religiously storing all of the information that you're experiencing, because if you consciously had to analyze all that all the time, you would lose your mind, like you would go crazy. So that makes me feel like if you're using 100% of your brain, would it just be like computer coding, just like, you know, constant words, analyze, movement, react? Like, what would it just be? It feels like robotic to me, but who knows? I'm not sure. It's like, it's a scary idea almost.
Sorry.
Sorry, you go ahead, Stevenson.
My thought was that I actually would feel nervous about that, because if we're not using so much of our brain and I constantly have thoughts all over the place, I don't think I would ever be able to fall asleep. Ever.
That's, yeah, I can relate. That's why I have the same concern. That's why I'm like, would it just be constant, like, yada, 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 like just talking? Because my thoughts are already fast. The idea of at 100%, if it's not there already, it's a little scary.
I would never sleep personally. I already sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night. If my thoughts were going any faster, it would never shut off. I'd be in a hospital.
I actually. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're good. It's funny because like I think about it. If I don't know like how much y'all know about computers, but if you're using 100% of your CPU like all of the time, your computer's gonna blow up. Like, and like in a weird way, like computers are like brains, and like they work in very similar ways to what we understand a brain works like. So that just scares me. Like I feel like I'd blow up or something.
Have we found a new source of anxiety?
But it's just like it would drain you. Like it would like take so much energy from your body to use 100% of your brain all the time. Like I don't think that would be fun. And also I think people are really magical and awesome and super powerful already. So like
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say I feel like there's so many signs of us being magical anyways. Like the idea of super conscious and telepathy, that you know, there was a study that they did of 2 people in separate rooms where one of them was like given 100 flashes of light to stimulate their brain, and the person in the other room had nothing to stimulate their brain, and their brain reacted the same exact way. Like the idea that we are connected on another level, that there's this super conscious of knowledge that we all can tap into, and that we're all connected on some level. I feel like there's so much magic within us, and that goes again into hypnosis and hypnotherapy, that there's a lot in the subconscious, because if we were always analyzing it and it was in the forefront, we would blow up like a computer. Like, we would go absolutely insane. So when you're communicating with the conscious and the subconscious, and then the superconscious comes into play, yes, empaths are magical. Then you've got this like resource-rich source of knowledge and healing and releasing and forgiveness and love. And I think that in itself is very magical. And empathy is also magical.
Very. We need more empaths.
Yes. Like the empaths probably struggle with social anxiety.
Cries.
Tenfold
Whole new level
to those who are not empathetic.
Because they got like, if I couldn't imagine being an empath and going to like a concert or a football game or something where there's just like thousands and thousands of people and you're taking on all those emotions all at once.
Dude, I've passed out before at a concert from that, and it was just so much. I like describe if you go to like a rap festival, you'll encounter a lot of like negative, angry energy, where like you bump into someone, it's shoulder to shoulder, and they turn around like, touch me again, we could fight. Like, it's a problem, like they're ready to fight you. Then if you go to like an EDM festival, you bump into someone, they're like, stay hydrated, bro. And then they like dance away. And I'm like, those are the different energies that I guess it's, you encounter as an empath. You can really feel that the weight of the negativity that surrounds you. So it's like some people would say as an empath, you can't go in a crowd, but I disagree. You just gotta gauge the energy of the crowd.
Yeah, for sure.
Like an EDM festival, it's like, touch me more.
It depends on what they're on. What was I gonna say? I struggle with that on a certain level, because like I'm not always aware of the energies I pick up. They kind of like, for me, it's very like subtle how energy passes on to me. So I'll be like, and I work at Starbucks, so let me tell you, girl, I'll be picking up energies all day. And so like sometimes like I'm just like, I get home and like my energy is all confused with other people's energies, and I just have to like let it out, because if not, it's gonna mess up my anxiety. And so I get you.
It's a hard idea, because I mean, you think about if the other person, the person who was exposed to the flashes of light, and then the person who wasn't exposed to them still experiences that, but they don't know that it's coming from the other room where the flashes of lights were. So, there's the idea that it's happening, but you don't really know where it's coming from, which is within itself pretty overwhelming, because that it's, all these energies are bombarding you, and you don't really know where they're coming from, or if they're good or bad, or how to react to them. So that's definitely overwhelming.
I just like, I'm definitely of the like more subtle variety, so it's hard for me sometimes. Like, I don't have the mental willpower to just like be like, I wonder where I picked up this weird energy from. Like,
mood.
So I'm just kind of like, oh, today was the day. The customers were weird. And then other days, like, they all have good vibes, and it's like, cool, the weather's nice for the first day. That I love that day, because like they're all like, oh, it's so sunny. Like,
I heard that about the Pacific Northwest. I heard like when it's sunny, everybody gets outside. Like, it's okay, the sun is out. It's like
well, and it's summer now, so people really are like out, which is like interesting for me. Today they were kind of grumpy though. I had an interesting day at work.
Well, Florida, you kind of take advantage of it because you have 360 days of sunshine a year. Like, even it rains like every day over the summer, but it's brief. It's like an hour,
30 to 45 minutes. Like,
yeah, it's sunny again.
Yeah, it just started raining here for the first time in like a month.
Oh, really?
Because it's just been straight sun in good old Tampa, Florida. And now it's finally raining and everyone's complaining. And I'm just like, man, we needed it. I'm okay with it.
People always complained when it rained in Florida. I would always be like, I love the weather today. And people would be like, what's wrong with you? Now I'm in the Pacific Northwest and I'm like, huh.
Murphy's Law. You always want what you can't have.
Yep. No, it's really funny because now I'm like, this is nice. Like, and I'm among people who agree with me. So it's very like odd to me.
Oh yeah, that's a weird shift.
Yeah, like being like, because like there are people who don't like the weather here, but like I feel like most people do, and that's why they came here. And so like I'll be like talking about how much I love that it's like a gray, like rainy day, and people will be like, yeah, isn't it so nice? This is like not hot at all. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then like but then like in Florida, if I said that, like people would like think I'm committing some kind of blasphemy against the sun. Like
The only thing I don't like about the rain in Florida is how people start driving when it rains. It's like,
oh god, yeah.
it's like a zombie apocalypse. We all got to drive slow for some reason. Instead of driving away from the zombies fast, we got to like, there's zombies here. Go slow. We might flip. Yeah. Everyone like doesn't know how to act.
Hey, Samson, you said you need to pop off.
Yeah, I need to roll.
All
Thanks
right.
for sharing with us today, Samson.
These are deep
Yeah.
topics. Thank you for coming on and opening up. It's we're kind of we're trying to remove the stigma away from it and making it something that's more make it open discussion. Like you can talk about these things and there's no judgment. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a great discussion. I love hearing everyone's stories. That was great.
Yes.
Mm.
Anytime.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
So is there like, are there moments where you've been like glad for your anxiety? Like it's helped you in some way?
Personally, yes. I feel like with my work it helps a lot because I have to be really. I'm an accountant, so I have to be like pay attention to a lot of detail, and like having to always second guess myself is actually a good thing because I'll go back and I'll check my work and then I'll check it again, and I'll check it again, and check it again. So that's like an anxiety thing, like not ever being too sure about something. Has helped me with my work. Just like having to constantly go back and check just to be sure, checking it over 100 times before I submit it. So
I'm personally struggling to find a scenario where my anxiety has helped me. Because I'm like, but I mean, I could use this example. Doesn't have to do with me, but it was a TED talk that a woman had done that she said she had spent like a decade talking to people about how stress is bad for their health. And then they had the realization that it's only that way because you tell it. You tell yourself it's bad. So this goes again to the idea of suggestion and what your subconscious mind is looking to validate. So when people would tell themselves, stress is good for me, stress is motivating me, stress is the source that is helping me to it's giving me energy to push through this scenario that is stressing me out. They would have better health, first of all, because they're not telling themselves that it's bad for them. And then they would perform better too. So I know that, and that's something I have been trying to do, is tell myself in the moments where I have that like overwhelming anxiety, like fear to speak and kind of like shakiness out of nervousness, to try to like let it motivate me and give me that energy, give me that confidence. But it's still a work in progress for me. I'll have to sit on that question a little bit more. Maybe there have been some scenarios they're just like not at the forefront of my mind. How about you?
I feel like it's a mixed bag. Like even the situations where I say like, oh, this really helped me or it was a good thing, like there's still like obviously an underside to it that's not great. But like well, maybe not, obviously. I don't know other people's experiences, but but for me, it has definitely like an underside that's not great. But like in my experience, it has helped me to like create better products because I'm so like self-critical that like it has to be like at a level that like most people are not willing to put work in. And so like, or else I like won't do it. And so like the bad part of it is that I like won't do things, but like the good part of it is that when I do things, like I really do put like everything into it, and that helps me out. But I think sometimes I just like want to not put that much energy into something. So
I felt that.
it's a mixed bag there. But I do think, you know, when I create something that I really, really love, that I am a little grateful for like that part of it.
I feel like anxiety can helps people be overachievers in some ways.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I guess I could say that there are like certain topics of interest for me that I wouldn't have gotten into if it wasn't for my anxiety. Really weird example is astrology, that I'm like started to read into it, and everybody thinks it's like a bunch of hoo-ha, and then you like really read in depth about it, and it's actually rather accurate, and breaking down the different aspects of your personality and your tendencies and your behaviors, and understanding why you react the way you do, and do the things you do. And I started reading about it, just trying to understand myself more. And then I started to understand it enough that I could understand other people more and stop taking things so personally. And thus it helped my anxiety, because I was like, this isn't about me. That's how you communicate, you know, that's just like your communication style. And so, yeah, I guess that's an interesting way that it kind of helped me, was just like to stop taking things so personally by learning about this random topic.
Yep.
Speaking of astrology, so I did a full natal chart, and I can't understand it because there's it's too much to like break down into like one. This is like who I am. So,
I can explain it to you. If you want to send it to me, I could definitely write it up for you.
Because like there was what is there? There's the moon, there's the sun, and then there's all the planets, and then you have your sun sign. My understanding is like your sun sign is like your overarching personality, but then you have like all the little nuances of your personality, and I feel like there's a lot of contradictions in mine.
Yeah, that's fair. I am like a walking contradiction, so you know, join the party. It's like
I think there's a lot of.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a lot of ways in which like it makes sense if you like look into the nuances of it, and like if you're not looking at those nuances, it might look like a contradiction, but like it might not be, or it might be conflicting parts of your personality, because people have like conflicting parts within their own personality, and that's not like necessarily a contradiction as much as it is something that makes you uniquely yourself.
I agree. So like your sun is going to be, like you said, your core personality. Your moon is like your internal self, your emotions, your inside interaction that you don't necessarily speak about. So how you emotionally respond. Venus is how you love. Mars is how you assert yourself. What else? Mercury is how you communicate. And then it just kind of gets more and more broad, like generational wise, like how you as a generation are working to impact the world. So I tend to tell people to pay attention to like their big 5 or 6 planets, like your rising, how people perceive you.
So my Mars is in Aries, but I'm a Capricorn, and I feel like those are two. I feel like they're two contradictions of each other, though.
I'm like, that makes sense. It's those are not necessarily contradictions of each other. I mean, if you look at it like purely from a standpoint of like logic, sure, like Capricorn logic very much flies in the face of Aries logic. Like those aren't compatible. But like your Mars isn't about logic. So
yeah.
So Mars is like, if you think of, a lot of this is related to, if you know things about like Greek or Roman mythology, it's a really good way to understand astrology because it's based in a lot of that. So like Mars is about, like, if you know who Mars is in Roman mythology, he is the god of war. And so like it's all about like Mars is how you like argue, how you like get into confrontation with people. And so like your energy as someone with an Aries Mars is very confrontational.
You can say how you feel.
You're not gonna hold back. If someone gets in a fight with you verbally, not necessarily physically, if someone gets in a fight with you, like you're gonna say what you think. You're right. They are wrong. There is no questioning of that. And you will fight with all of the fury within yourself until you win because you're right as an Aries.
Oh.
Now, a lot of, if you are proven to be wrong and you believe it because, and you were in a conflict, then you are likely to like go with that because you like will follow if you think that the other person is right. But since your sun is a Capricorn, you might not, because Capricorns are not convinced of things very easily, and they
I
always
question
think they're
everything.
right. Yeah.
It's a problem.
So, and I am also a Capricorn, so I get it.
What's your birthday? Destiny.
Hey, my camera's still not working. I think I might need to invest in a webcam. So
I think
What's your birthday, Sammy?
January 9th.
13th.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I feel like Aries also are extremely logical. They don't have much room for emotion. I find them to be, and that's why.
Really?
Yeah. So they're the polar opposite of Libra. So there's a sign of self, and Libra is a sign of partnership. So Aries are generally more focused on what it has to do with them and their benefit, as well as like, and occasionally they will branch out to what's good for the collective, but they're first. So their thoughts, their feelings. That's why they're like, when they're in confrontation, they're like, yeah, this is what it is, and what about it?
My ex-wife was an Aries. Like that was her sun sign. So I'm not surprised by that.
I find it when they're open to logic, and that's why if they are proven to be wrong, they're usually okay with saying that they were wrong. But then when they are emotionally involved, which I feel takes a lot for them, like it takes a lot to get them to that point, then it's like logic isn't helpful to them, and they will take their answer as the answer. And I feel like it's a double-edged sword with Aries.
Well, I find that Aries are very passionate, and I think they're like, in my experience, they're very emotionally driven, but unless they are proven otherwise, and that's why I say like it really like you have to convince them that they're wrong. It's but if you do successfully, they will follow you.
Good luck with that, though.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. So, as a Capricorn, I find that especially challenging because I know I'm right. So it's
The truth.
So it's hard to get an Aries there.
Yeah, we definitely butted heads a lot.
Yeah. Any of the horned signs tend to butt heads. So Taurus, Capricorn, Aries.
That's so interesting because they seem to end up together quite often. Like Aries and Taurus, I tend to see them together a lot.
Mhm.
Taurus and Taurus, Capricorn and Taurus, Capricorn and Aries. Like I see them together a lot, which is really interesting.
We like to fight.
I do like a good argument.
Like a good debate. Yep.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Capricorn likes a debate, and Aries likes a fight.
Yeah,
And so does a Taurus.
That's why I have so many Capricorn friends as a Libra. Is I love a good debate. I'm not in for the fight though. All my Scorpio placements make me a crybaby, so I'm not here for the fight.
I'm a Scorpio.
Yes. Are you a November or an October Scorpio?
November.
Oh, so you're probably not as much of a crier as you are a confrontational one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got so what's interesting with me is I have a stellium in Capricorn.
Ooh, so you
So
Capricorn.
I'm like mad Capricorn. Like all of my inner planets, Capricorn. Sun, Capricorn. Multiple generational planets, Capricorn. So,
Yeah, I'm that way with Scorpio.
yeah, and so like I have the like a mad Capricorn vibe, but I like have these elements that like throw people off. Like my people, I fight like a Capricorn until I get mad, and when I get mad, my Lilith moon is in
Oh.
Aries.
Oh, yep, there it is.
So and that's probably because my dad's in Aries and he's a jerk. So
I always
Yeah.
tell people, because they're like, oh, astrology is a bunch of bullshit. And I'm like, well, if you don't relate to your sun sign, it's like you can't read a book by its cover. It goes so in depth to like every aspect of who you are as an individual and your tendencies. So I'm like, just get your birth chart, start reading into that, and you're going to see like a huge difference kind of in what you think about astrology. But a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a Sagittarius, I don't relate to it, it's got to be wrong. I'm like, oh, but read the rest.
I always find it interesting. A lot of people will like take me for like, they'll like be like, why? Like, if they've seen like the ugly side of me where I like get mean, like people will be like, how could you be a Capricorn? Like Capricorns aren't like that. And I'm like, girl,
Now that's
I
your
learned from my
problem.
dad.
I love
bigger
Petty
problem.
Sammy. When Petty Sammy comes out, I'm like,
really-
ooh.
Petty Sammy's
It's
me,
tough
'cause I'll
one.
bring up stuff that like you don't even remember and like use it to hurt you and like be really mean. And so like if someone like, especially as a Capricorn, if someone hurts someone I really care about, including myself, you
That's
know,
the truth.
um,
That's a big one for me.
I'm gonna be mad, and then but then I fight like an Aries. So I'll bring up something personal, and I will like stab you in the throat with it, and it's like really awful because Aries fight mean. So like for example, like I got in a fight with my dad, and he's had like multiple divorces, and I was like, "This is why you can't stay married, and no one loves you." Like I'm just so like. I get very cutthroat very quickly.
I was going to say cutthroat.
Yeah, Petty Sammy's gone after some people that went after me, and yeah, they didn't
it's
fare
not-
well.
It's not cute.
I think that's the problem with some astrology, though, is then you'll encounter the people who say they know a lot about it, but they're like, oh, you're a Gemini, we can't speak.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's too
I
much.
watched it with you. I'm like, bro, that's too much. Like everyone is shaped differently. There is no just Gemini, unless by some crazy chance, I'm sure there is. There's someone who's born with all their planets in Gemini. But whatever the sign is, you can't just rule
But even
somebody out.
then,
Yeah, seriously. you
but
can't. Yeah, you can't rule someone out and just say like, oh, because you're this, I won't affiliate with you. There's so much more. There's so much more in depth and these
there's
little
so much
nuances.
nuance.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even with me being a Capricorn, like mostly, like there's a lot of nuance to it. Like my moon is Sag, so I'm not like a boring Capricorn. Like I'll go take you on an adventure. It'll be fun. Let's be spontaneous.
All
Wow,
right.
that's got to be a lot, though. The spontaneous overthinker.
Spontaneous overthinker with a Virgo rising, so a perfectionist.
Girl,
It's a mess.
done. It's done.
Help me understand this.
Okay, what do we do? Oh, I never understand that part. We have to like look at the.
Ooh.
Okay.
Do you
Oh,
do you second
not the
guess a lot?
moon in Cancer.
Yeah, that's what I was looking
Oh,
at.
those feelings. You
so,
feel a lot,
um,
don't you?
I do.
But you're probably second guess a lot whether you're going to tell people about what you're feeling or not, on top of already having a Capricorn sun. So you go back and forth between communicating how you want things to be and then expecting other people to know. And it's just this weird line of like, I'm going to tell you, but I'm also not. And it's like only based off of when you feel ready.
That's fucking trippy because that's where I'm at right now with something in my life.
That's the best way I can describe Cancer moons right there.
Oh, and then he's a Capricorn Mercury, so that's like you tell it straight too. Like you're very like
Again, logical.
logical communication
calculated.
for the purpose of like achieving things.
Yeah, calculated and honest, genuine. Like you definitely for the purpose. Like you don't like the nonsense of it.
Want to cut the bullshit.
Yeah.
Very much.
not a sugarcoater.
Nope. Capricorn Mercuries are not. They're not going to give it to you nice. Like if you want a nice answer, you don't ask a Capricorn Mercury.
No.
Because I'm the same way. Like people will ask me like, "Oh, this and that," and I'll be like, "No, that looks ugly on you."
And then on top of that, to have a Cancer moon, you're even more so if you're emotionally involved, you're not going to sugarcoat nothing. Like you are going to say it how it is because you resonate
because
so
you
strongly.
care.
It's done. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you care so much that that's just how it is, and you don't have the patience that you say shit out of love, even if it's harsh.
Yeah, tough love.
Venus and Sagittarius is interesting, which means like you're really interested in learning about the people that you're with, but you can get bored quickly.
You fucked him up right there.
And so it's like an interesting balance because as a Capricorn, you have that loyalty, especially with the Cancer moon. You've got that loyalty and that that ability to stick through it. But the Sagittarius are so flighty and like interested in adventure and spontaneity that it's sometimes that being in one space is too much. And that's probably why you value a lot of alone time, just to kind of like separate and have that the changes in that environment. You got to have some separation to stay interested.
What I think is really interesting is having the Sagittarius with the Aries and the Cancer, because like if someone you love hurts you, like you're done.
It's a weird mix of earth and fire for sure.
Because there's with the Cancer, like you're sensitive. So if someone hurts you, like you're gonna be like, okay, fuck you too, bitch. And like then they're gonna like then you're gonna fight, and it's gonna be a mean fight because you have Aries as your Mars, but then like you're a Capricorn, so it's all like based in logic. And
you're describing the past year of my life to a T.
Yeah. And like all this is happening while you're getting like you're not interested in this person anymore because they've hurt you. And so like you're bored and you want to go find something new and less hurtful.
What's interesting is you have like let's see, 1, 2, 3.
But if you have a healthy relationship, you will be like so intrigued by this person like forever. And you will
Sagittarius are the never-ending learners. They're interested in learning. So it's like that's
if
definitely
someone can keep you on your toes and like keep you interested and keep you learning, like that they will be a good fit for you.
Definitely someone who values intellect. But it's interesting because you have 3 planets in Capricorn and then 3 also in Sagittarius.
Yeah.
So to have a stellium in 2 of those planets is such an interesting mix between being so Capricorn is an earth sign, Sagittarius is a fire sign. So you have this grounded side and this fiery side, which means you're so like logical and like you can hold space, but you're also very passionate and you can have this like burst of energy, whether it's anger or love or whatever it is. So it's 2 really interesting elements to have. So like neck and neck, especially with like multiple Aries placements, you got a lot more fire. So that passion is real, especially when it's something you care about.
I think also what I find interesting is like there are some generational placements I have in common with Justin, and then other ones that he's just before me, like just before me. So it's interesting to see those because like we have the same Neptune and Pluto, but then like the Saturn and the Uranus are in Sagittarius, whereas mine are like I think not. But
mine are in Aquarius.
Yeah.
All right, let's go around the room. Who's next?
Oh God.
Do me.
Do it.
I'm like, I don't know if I want to give the whole world.
I love how we shifted so fast from anxiety to like, let's talk about astrology.
Yeah, that's how these go.
Help with my anxiety though.
No, I don't want to talk about anxiety anymore. Let's talk about astrology.
Yeah, screw it. Pull up the stars. They know everything.
Destiny, where were you born?
Rochester, Minnesota.
What's your birthday?
11/12/1980.
What time were you born? Do you know?
I think it was
You
midnight or a little after.
We'll say 12:01.
Yeah. My mom would know if I asked her.
All right, here we go.
Ooh. Well, with the Venus and Libra, I can
A lot of Libras.
a lot of Libra placements. So you're definitely indecisive, but very caring. You probably overthink a lot.
Oh yeah.
But you really care about the people that you love, and therefore you're very loyal. And you are probably someone who will stand up for what you believe in, more so for other people than yourself. But with
Exactly.
I know that about Destiny.
Yep, exactly.
And this is really funny because I know Destiny really well. Like with the Libra placements, I will say like it takes Destiny a long time to come to what her stance on something is, but when she does, like that's it. And
people,
like
it's a mood.
yeah.
I can relate to that. I'm very much the same. That's a good way to describe it. That like you go back and forth a lot. You need a lot of input from other people, and then once you've made your decision, it's made. Like you're
It's
there.
made. There is no changing, even if it's incorrect.
Yep. Yep.
I've always heard that Capricorn moon is one of the hardest placements for the moon because it's such a position that you don't know when you're ready to share or not, regards to your emotions. Like you feel there's always a wall up, and it's like you're unsure. I don't know. You're unsure about whether your emotions are correct or not, and you're always trying to analyze and figure out whether they're logical or not logical, and so you kind of pick and choose when you want to share that. But it's not common that you're very. Yeah, it takes a long time for you to feel comfortable enough to fully share your true emotions with people. Is what I would interpret from a Capricorn moon.
I would also add that with a Capricorn moon, like part of it is that with the Capricorn moon, you like how do I explain this? Capricorn is a sign that I don't often use this analogy for, but is often described as like the political sign or like the fatherly sign. And I think when it comes to the moon, that makes a lot of sense. Like you keep your emotions close to your breast. Like you don't want people to have access to your emotions if they can use them against you, or if they can be detrimental or might even be wrong and not helpful. And so like anything that you share from a place of either trusting someone not to use that against you, or like complete trust in a way that like that has to be built and it takes a long time to be built, or it comes from a place of this will cause me no damage, so I can share it.
Yeah, and I would say Sammy and Justin are two people that I trust fully, completely. So I can tell either of you anything, and I know it's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the Leo ascendant, which is like how other people perceive you. So do other people like perceive you to be like high maintenance?
Yes.
Like ditzy to an extent. I mean that in the nicest way.
Yes.
That's like usually how Leo women at least seem to have, like when the rising at least is like you come across in that way, but it's not necessarily where you're at. You have that like quirky Libra sense of humor. Even with like the Mercury in Scorpio, you might have a little bit of like a dark sense of humor that not everyone is ready to hear. And so it's like a very, very personal to you.
Sammy knows.
But you come across in a very different way. So you probably come across to people in a very, very polar opposite to who you actually are type of way, which almost probably soothes your moon in Capricorn, not wanting people to know exactly where you stand. But that might not be like a conscious knowledge of yours.
Oh yeah. Like I said, Sammy, you could tell that. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. I agree. That's also what I find interesting is that
What's
Sagittarius Mars that's so interesting.
MC is what, midheaven?
Midheaven, yeah.
What does the midheaven represent? I'm
gosh. I'm about to take astrology, so I can tell you probably in like 3 months.
It's a mood. I'm still learning. There's so much that's so in depth. It's like then you have all the signs and the different planets, and then you have the houses, and like it gets so in depth. So I'm an eternal student for sure in regards to this. But I do know that MC stands for midheaven, so that's what I can tell you for now, Justin.
Let me look it up.
Some of these would be badass tattoos.
Yeah.
I definitely am gonna get something tattooed on me, some type of planet and astrology symbol somewhere. I mean, I've already got the chakras on my side, so yeah, we'll get there.
That's why I use the green heart. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, I like that.
The midheaven is also the cusp of the 10th house of social status of the natal chart and can tell you a lot about your public life.
Taurus. That makes me think
it
that
can help you understand more about both your professional and social life. So once you've checked your birth chart, yeah.
It's super stereotypical, but with it being in Taurus, that draws me to food. It makes me think that you love food.
You love food. You're a workhorse.
Oh yeah.
Like
Definitely.
you put in all of the work to everything that you do.
Not as perfectionist as a Virgo, but definitely still the type of person that if you've made 99%, you're going to pay attention to the 1% you haven't achieved instead of the 99 you have.
Which is a very earth sign thing. Like I would say Taurus is the less self-critical earth sign compared to like Capricorn and Virgo. But like Taurus is still like they're gonna chug until they get to 100.
They're much more action oriented, far less emotion. It's more masculine and feminine, so a lot more logic involved than emotion. And they have those emotions. It's just kind of like in the background for Taurus. I
feel like the thing with Virgo's more about like helping others with their perfection, like doing like very perfectionist, wanting to maintain an image and wanting to like be perfect. But then Capricorn, it's like about achieving something and doing something like for the greater good, and like so it has to be like right and good and correct, and like but for Taurus it's just like out of the like just wanting to work, like wanting to do it right and wanting to do it like, and it's very much more action oriented, whereas like a Capricorn is much more like ends means. And Virgo is a lot more like this has to be done correctly. And it bothers me if it's not.
Yeah. I would say too that like Taurus is they say very loyal. So whatever endeavors you embark on, I feel like this is with most of the earth signs also. I'm not so sure about Virgo.
But Taurus is particularly loyal.
Yeah, but with Capricorn and Taurus, I find them both to be individuals that like, if you try something and you want something, you persevere in like the strongest sense of the word, like you will get what you want if you have the desire to get it. And so it's very much, outcome is pretty much proportionate to desire. And it's very much like they'll strive for what they want and do it well because they feel like it.
And it's interesting too, because I feel like Capricorns have a larger end goal, whereas Taurus just like achieve what they want and then they'll go eat and take a nap.
Literally, eat a big meal, take a nap, call it a day.
But so what's interesting with that is that that's in your like social life. So like you work really hard like on the things that you do with people that you love, or the things that you do for your professional well-being, anything that's for your social and public life, like
the collective objective.
For example, the collective objective, or the cups that you're working on, or your family, because in a way that is your work. Those are things that you put like everything into, and then you take a nap and you eat. So
Yeah, I would definitely say, yeah, I've been going hard with the collective objective and helping this hopefully grow to something really great.
I think we're on the right track, I think.
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
it was. But yeah, those are some fun things. Let's see what else is on here that I find interesting. I'm still like perplexed by this Mars and Sagittarius. Very fiery, but like in a different way than the other fire signs.
So, I mean, you have more water. There's like, that is the only earth sign in your, no, oh, I guess there's 2 earth signs, 2 or 3. But there's a lot of air and a lot of water.
Mhm.
Which is
And then a little bit of fire.
yeah.
Just a little.
For that Sagittarius to be in there, I wonder if it gets kind of drowned out. That it's like there's this want for the fiery reaction and the fire to assert, but it takes a lot to get there.
Yeah,
I've seen him mad.
I've seen it. It takes a lot, but when it happens,
It's done. Yeah.
it's done.
That's
Sagittarius
the fire.
will burn the whole bridge down. Like a Sagittarius is like very defiant, very I low key like associate Sagittarius with like ideological purity.
Oh my gosh.
And so like, but that's just like a characterization that I use in my mind to help me like get that level of passion correct, right? So like I'll picture like a really intense like leftist person who's like just burn the institution down to the ground and restart, like very very like angry.
Yeah,
Kinda, like, wanna
Justin
fit.
would know that there were some people that, yeah, I went full on them.
Yep.
See,
But
I
it's
know,
not like Aries where it's like cutthroat. It's more like, no, I need to destroy this. Like,
Yep.
Blow it up.
I know Sagittarius to be the sign of ego, and thus
Mhm.
many Sagittarius that I know find themselves to be gods in their own minds, which is wonderful in some ways, but it can be horrible in an argument. For
mind you, my
obvious
moon is Sagittarius.
so yeah, to have your Mars and Sagittarius, definitely, like she said, you will burn that bridge. That bridge will no longer, the ashes will be gone. Like, it's done.
There is no bridge here anymore.
There was
we are
never
not
a bridge
friends. We were never friends. I don't know you.
Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
who?
That sounds familiar.
She doesn't
What?
go here.
Who's
That
that
reminds
person?
me of a friend that Destiny and I had to cut off because they were getting really toxic. And
Yep. They are.
We both kind of burned the bridge, but I did it in a Capricorn way.
So I've got-
And it was because they went after Sammy. Once they went after them, I was like, nope, we're done.
Yeah, it was real bad. It was bad. But basically, like, this person was kind of going off the rails and like being very Trumpian after like not being like that at all, and like being a very close friend and had been distancing themselves from us. And like I can tell part of it is that they're going through like an abusive relationship right now. But like I was just kind of like over like her treating me like crap because of that. And I like said something about it and she didn't like it. And so I told her like, and it was like a political thing, but it was like really like inappropriate of her to say and very like transphobic. And so I called her out for it. And like her response to me was completely like
Basically, fuck your feelings.
uncompassionate and like very like dismissive. And I was like, for someone who's like been there for me for a really long time, like that's not cool. So I kind of went off. And then like I was trying to like, because she was someone I cared about as a Capricorn, if you're loyal to someone, you're not just gonna trash them. So like I went in it completely logical, being like, this is why this wasn't okay. I just want you to like recognize that this was hurtful and like not do hurtful things. And like she just kept at it because she's an Aries. And so then she brought out my like Lilith moon Aries when she involved her fiance. And I said some really nasty things about her fiance that I knew that were kind of private. And I like put it out there for the world to know. And like she didn't like that. So now
Yeah, this was information I shared with Sammy that she had shared with me, and it's like, no, let's burn this bridge, put it all out there.
I became very Aries very quick. It was very like I was like, burn it down with fire.
And the Capricorn placements in the background are like, go for it. And they're like,
no, calm down. And then it was like, you know what? Fuck it. She took it too far. Like
Eventually, Capricorn grabbed that gas can.
Yeah,
you gotta get them to do it, but they'll do it.
Man, as
once
someone
it becomes too personal, that's when they do it.
I'm so non-confrontational. I have to I will have a confrontation in my head, and that is enough for me until it builds up so much that I have to let it out. And
then you vent to someone else.
No, I'll finally say it to the person, but I have to have the argument in my head like 20,000 times until it builds up enough that I'm finally like, I'm gonna lose my mind, and I let it all out. But recently, I've been much better about standing up for myself, which is very empowering for me. When someone treats me like shit, I'm usually the person that will take it for a long time, and now I'm just at a point that I'm like, this bridge can burn. I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and deal with it. So that would have been very empowering for me to just finally be like, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to say these things to me or around me and act like it's okay. So I'm proud of you for burning that bridge because it needed to be done.
I mean, I have a Sag moon. I don't play.
Some bridges got to be burned.
Yep.
Amen.
Oh,
Definitely. There's a couple of recent bridges that we've burned, me and Justin too, that, we're done.
When I get
this is long enough with that.
This is the thing though, like when I'm to the point where I'm ready to burn that bridge, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna keep lighting it. So it's like as they're trying to rebuild it, no, we're gonna keep lighting that bitch on fire. You're not getting fucking. There's gonna be no rebuilding.
I don't leave anything to rebuild. That's the thing.
It's like a whole crater where there once was a bridge.
There
like
was
a nuclear bomb.
There is no longer a river for you to cross.
The Air Force is going by and dropping bombs periodically.
Yeah, literally.
And I don't even do it periodically. I just drop a nuclear bomb, and then there's no desire to build a bridge.
Oh, the nuclear bomb was dropped, but I'm leaving some troops over there to make sure that fucking shit stays that way.
I want that to stay that way. That's what. This is so interesting. I'm having fun with this. This is fun. Where is?
Yeah, definitely. This last year, I've burned a lot of bridges of people that
of toxic people that didn't need to be in your life, Destiny.
Exactly.
You struggled to do until recently. So I'm very proud of you and happy for you.
Yep. I'm buying the Sammy mantra. Who are you?
That's my new. I'm literally just like, honestly, I've reached a point where like, if people are toxic, I'm just like, who's that? Who are you?
I'm gonna start using that. I think that's a good idea.
I've become very petty these days.
One of my new favorite lines: "Get fucked, stay fucked."
That is a good
Where
one.
do we see that?
On TikTok, somebody was going at I think some Trumper or something, and they're like, you know what? Get fucked and stay fucked.
I'm
just so like, fuck around and find out, boo. Fuck around and find out.
Lately, I've been making people uncomfortable by commenting on how they're making me uncomfortable, and I find it rather humorous. Because they're like, I'm the last person people expect to say something about it, and then I'm like, I say it in the most nice way that I'm like, hey, I like you, but like, don't comment on that. And they're like so shook that I said anything, and then they get really uncomfortable, and then they complain about it to someone else, and I'm like, I honestly find this humorous. Carry on.
Carry on. Continue your behavior.
Carry on. If it made you that uncomfortable, I might continue to comment on it. How does that work? That you say something that's like clearly offensive and makes someone else uncomfortable, and then when they say something to you about it, you're like,
that made me so uncomfortable that she called me out like that.
Exactly.
Like, how dare you tell me not to say the N-word? Like, oh my God.
Like, please calm down.
You have some audacity.
Exactly. How dare you expect respect? What's wrong with you?
I can't with people.
You want to be treated like a human being? No.
Oh, that one debate group that several of us are in. Oh my gosh, yeah, there's
Oh,
a
I
lot of.
left that real quick. Mm-mm,
Yeah, that's a
not today.
horrible one. Oh,
Not today, Satan.
I'm there just to troll.
Yep, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Y'all enjoy your trolling. I'm over it. I was in there for like 2 seconds. I was like, this is all like nonsense, and I can't.
I don't even know how to jump up here. Come on. My dog is hanging out right now, acting like he doesn't.
It's just too easy to bait some of them though. They take the bait and eat it like
Every time.
every time.
Who's
So sorry, excuse me. When I'm a witch and I don't want to give the public my birth chart. That's too much information for people. That's dangerous. I might have to do that off broadcast.
After the live.
I second that.
All right.
Oh, hi. Got a
Oh,
dog.
hi there.
This is Gemini.
Oh my god, I love it. Is Gemini a boy or girl or other?
He is a boy. My other one is gender fluid,
Oh, we love it.
but this one, he's the one that's growling on the side is gender fluid. His name is Buttercup.
Hi, Gemini.
Oh, hello.
Oh, little cutie.
Oh my goodness.
Buttercup.
Buttercup is
heard me. Hi, Buttercup.
All right. Do you guys want to end and just chill for a little bit?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank y'all so much for
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad I could come for a little bit.
Yeah. That was a really good discussion. It really was. We need more of that.
Definitely.
The last, actually, they've all been pretty good, to be honest. But I don't know. I like talking about the mental health topics.
Mm-hmm.
I me as well.
I like that kind of stuff. I'm excited to talk about Pride.
Yes.
June 25th is, so really we can talk about it all month because it is Pride Month. But June 25th, we're going to do just a Pride episode. That's it, just Pride.
I love that. I mean, it's Pride Month every month, in my opinion. But
Damn straight.
no, not damn straight. Damn
not
gay.
straight. Actually. You're right.
I'm just kidding.
No, you're right.
But yeah,
And I always stress that allies are just as important to the LGBTQIA. We need you because you're the bigger majority that can help us fight for the rights that we need and want.
Put me to work. I'm out here.
I'm still convinced that everyone's a little gay.
I've said that before. Everybody's got they're on some sort of scale. I've said that before too.
Yeah, remember Deere said that one time that there's always that line that somebody would cross and have their face buried in a pillow for the right person.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank you everybody if you hung around and watched. We will be back again next Friday. We don't have a topic yet, but we will be here.
Happy Pride.
Yay.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.